Welcome back to Shifting the Solids. Today we're going to be talking about the Thicken Tool in Onshape. But before we get started, let's go with some announcements. Big news, I'm teaming up with TooTallToby for the first ever 3D CAD teen tournament starting January 10th. I want you guys to watch as students will be battling out in a 4-part live stream event to prove who's the fastest 3D modeler. There's going to be epic challenges, live commentary, and awesome prizes from some sponsors, 3D Connection. You're going to be donating some prizes, so that's pretty cool. Mark your calendars, spread the word, and get ready for the ultimate CAD showdown. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll see you live on January 10th. Links to the live stream will be in the description below. You can see up here on the board, we got SMILEY and the JAYUS on the first round, and Mr. FANCYPANTS and NXC. These are some of my students. They've been working really hard, and they're really, really excited and stoked for this. So tune in. Again, check the links in the description down below. Set your calendars. Get notified. It's going to be live in 18 days, January 10th at 10 a.m. So let's get back to the real reason why you're here, the Thicken practice. So Thicken is a tool that lives, if we take a look, follow me up top, up here right next to Loft like we talked about last week. Thicken is something that's a little bit different. Everything we've been talking to up to this point has been about solids, right? This series is called Shifting to Solids. So the thing about Thicken is that it requires surfaces. Now, a lot of those things I've been telling you in extrude, revolve, loft, and sweep, remember there were some things that were a little more advanced. If you think of 3D Onshape in two kind of fields, you got your solids and you have your surfaces. The more advanced stuff kind of deals with surfaces. And there's nothing today that we're going to show in this video that you can't do with extrude. It's just another way of going about doing it. So if you're coming from SketchUp and you've ever drawn some stuff on the old SketchUp program, you know, you had to draw and extrude a length and then kind of change the length of whatever piece you were doing if you were doing some woodworking stuff. That's kind of how the Thicken tool works, and we'll go through there. But like always, we're going to need to start with some geometry. So let's start with a sketch on the top plane. We'll select that top plane and press Shift and S. We'll go normal, N to normalize, and P to hide those planes. And what I'm going to do for geometry, I'm just going to draw some lines. We'll zoom out a little bit. I'm going to draw a kind of funky shape that's going to give me some varying surfaces so we can play with this Thicken tool. And that should be good. So nothing here I'm planning out. It's literally just a random shape, just threw some lines together. So from here, normally what I would do is I'm going to do Shift and E, and I'm going to extrude this. So we'll just make this, we'll go 10 inches tall, and we'll call that good. So now I have this face, this thickened or this extruded piece that kind of looks jagged, oblong, whatever. Now what's Thicken do? So let's say I needed this to be removed, okay? If we were to count this as a shape, I know ultimately I have a top. Remember, I have a bottom. If we look at that view cube, a left, a right, a front, and a back. So essentially 6 faces, but if we were to count all the surfaces, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 on the top, and 15 on the bottom. So essentially I'd have 15 different faces. And I can thicken each one of those in a different way. So let's play with this now that we have some geometry created. So let's click our Thicken tool. And what it's going to do, it's going to ask me to click a face or surface to thicken. I want you to think about this as if you were to be drawing a shape and I wanted to shorten it or extend it. Okay, so you could do both things. It's extruding. I could do the same thing with the extrude tool, but extrude kind of requires you to have some geometry. This is going to use what's already created. So I'm going to click this face here. And if we zoom in and we look, it's going to be cutting off. Right now it's set at 1/4 inch. Let's change that to 5 inches and see what happens. So it's going to add 5 inches because it's on the add tool. If I click remove, it'll cut that face back 5 inches. So you'll get something along these lines. So I could do that and say, okay. I could take this face and thicken that one. And I want to remove, maybe I want this to go in another 4 inches. Okay, I can cut out a block like so. So I can use the thicken tool to then erase some different parts or add to it. Okay, I'm very much old school in that I learned to draw these things in 2D. So if I needed to add something and cut it out, what I would do is if I needed this shorter, I would just make that shorter. And then when I extrude it, it's already cut shorter for me. I would kind of do that in that first drawing. But this is, if this is something, let's say maybe you were drawing in the tournament or you were doing something and you're like, oh man, I drew this part, but I made it too long and there's too many things for me to go back into, or I have geometry that's based off of the geometry at that exact measurement. It's linking back. It's driven by something else. Thicken might be your way to get around it and get back to what you need to do. So we'll do another one. I can add this face. We'll go thicken. And I want this to match up to here. So I can go add, and I could do my thickness of 2. And you'll see it's getting closer, maybe 2.5, right? 2. We'll go 2.56, right? The problem with thicken is that you're going to have to know exactly what that is. What that measurement is, where if I did this with extrude, I could use that face and then click my up to face and it's just going to match. So whatever works easiest for you. I'm not here to tell you what's right and what's wrong. I'm just here to show you how all these tools work. So personally, I like the extrude, but if this is something that works for you, thicken's where it's at. If we look at this example, I have a simple stool kind of drawn up. I went through and did this a little while ago. And this is all made out of 2x4s. So I got 5 2x4s on the top, 4 legs, and some cross members, right? But let's say I already had this thing drawn and I don't want to go all the way back, and let's find where my extrude is. I made those 25 inches long. Maybe I want this to be a little bit taller. So if we look from here down to the bottom, I have a total of 26.5 for my height. Let's say I want it to be 30 total. So I would go here to thicken and I would click add. Let's click all 4 of those faces, and 26.5. And a 1/2 inch will bring us to 27. And another 3 inches will bring us to 30. So we're going to say 3.5 is what I want to add. I'm going to add 3.5 inches. We'll say enter. And now I have this table that is from the top to the bottom, 30 inches. Now, if we go back into that thicken, biggest thing is making sure you click merge scope. If you notice, let me click that off real quick. I have this blue foot is one solid piece, but I have 3 extra blocks that are not quite attached. It's a block on a block. You'll see if I go and shut off that piece, it just added a 3.5 inch block underneath that. And that's not what we want to do. We want it to be a solid overall piece. Let me turn part 20 back on. So what you need to do is make sure when you're in thicken, your merge scope, you click merge with, it's merging with part 7. Want to merge with all of the legs that it's supposed to merge with, and then we'll say okay. And you end up with a pretty nice looking side table shelf, whatever you want to call it. But that's how you would do that. Now, maybe I want these to all be thickened as well. And I don't want to go back to my original geometry because things are tied to that. If we look at my first sketch where I drew those legs, they're tied to that corner there. Well, maybe I want those there, but I want them to, like an overhang of, I don't know, a ½ inch or so on each side, maybe an inch on each side. I can go here and click thicken, and I want to thicken all of these faces. And I want them all to go out by another inch. I can say okay. And you'll see it's gonna add an inch from whatever face I chose. So pretty cool if you're making some tables or you're making some stuff. The only problem is it all merged into one solid piece. So as you're doing it, go along and try one piece at a time. Let's get rid of the merge scope. This is going to merge with that. We'll say okay. And I would go along and thicken each one of my pieces as I go. So we're going to add an inch on that side, merge with that, pick that face and that face. We'll say okay. Same thing. Personally, if I were to do this, and I was doing this for an actual project, I would do this and do one and pattern it, kind of like I did when I first drew it. But just to get the idea to show you that now I have an overhang, this is something you can do, and you can, if you're building stuff for customers or you're doing stuff in your shop classes, and you want variation. Somebody's like, hey, I really like that design you have, but I would rather it was a little bit longer. Okay, well, how much longer? I need like about an inch on each side. Cool, here you go, done. Pop out a cut list and do what you need to do. So that's going to do it for thicken. Something I wanted to bring up really quick. I had a comment left on one of the videos. Let me open up a new tab to kind of show this. All right, so I pulled up the comment, and it's from at Moodberry. It says, you have mastered Onshape well, but I watched your video hoping that you could tell me how to define circles. All the circles you drew, you started at the origin and defined as black, no problem. But suppose you wanted to start your circle away from the origin. When I draw circles, they are undefined because they are not started at the origin. I have a reason for wanting my circles to be away from the origin, but I'm having a tough time getting them to go from blue to black, defined. If I click on the circle center, then to the origin, it will jump to either the horizontal or vertical, but still isn't defined. I can't figure out how to constrain the other axes, either horizontal or vertical. Do you have a video on how to do that? So I don't have a specific video, but this one's going to do it for you. So at Moodberry, if you're watching this, I'll tag you in it so you can see. But basically, when anything's defined, let's get a sketch started. What it needs to know is its relation to the origin. So if it's just floating off in space, it doesn't know what it's doing because it doesn't know where the origin is. So what he's talking about is when I draw my circles and I do it, I try to tell all my students to always base everything off the origin because it knows where the origin is and it's going to define everything. So if everything's based from there, it knows where it's at. Think about it like you're leaving your house. Home base is your house, right? You always know how to get back to your house. And that's what this is doing, is trying to figure out where home is. So right now my circle is not fully defined because it is blue. And if you take a look over here, you will see that next to my sketch one, I have this little blue line. That's something new they added. It'll tell you sketch one is not fully defined. So that'll help you kind of see what, if it's there, just a real quick visual cue without jumping in. So why is this not fully defined? Well, one, it knows that it's based around the origin, but it doesn't know how big it is. So if I click and give it a dimension, we'll just make it 3 inches. Once I do that, now it's fully defined. If we come back over and check where my pencil is, you'll see that that minus sign is gone because now it is fully defined. So yes, I know everything I did was drawn around the origin, and that's what you were asking, right? But you said, what if I do it outside of the origin and I don't want my circle drawn on the origin. So I'm going to draw a circle out here. He says he's given it a dimension of 3 or any dimension, right? So you'll see I did exactly what I did before, except it's not tied to that origin. So one of the things he was saying, he maybe clicked the two points and he said horizontal. Well, that's cool. It's now locked in place, but it could be anywhere along this horizontal axis, that x-axis, okay? We'll undo it. He did the same thing for vertical. He said, I tried that and it didn't do anything. It knows it's locked on that Y, but what's going on? So we'll bring it back off into space. What it needs to know is how far away from that center point it is. So if you're using a specific measurement, obviously type that in, but if you don't know, just click D and you can dimension it and press enter and then give it a dimension on the vertical and the horizontal. And now you'll see once I give it 2 different measurements, and I didn't type in those, I just clicked it. It gave me a fully defined sketch because now it knows how far away on the x-axis and how far away on the right axis that circle sits. Another way to do this without typing in a measurement is give it a line, go from center, kind of pop up here, but instead of making it a real line, make it a construction line. And then you can do kind of something like that and give it an area and it knows where it's at. The problem is it needs at least 1 dimension. So if I tell this 4 and I tell this 2, now it's fully defined because the rest of the triangle will be defined according to it. So it needs to know exactly X and Y based off of that origin. If you're running into the problem of, oh, it's not fully defined, I can't draw the rest of my shape. There's a lot of things you can do without being fully defined. Obviously fully defined is going to be better. There's a reason that they tell you if it's defined or not. But the problem I seem to run into is I know some people will draw whole shapes and they'll go and they'll start drawing stuff and they'll give the relation and then this will be some sort of something and they'll do all this and then afterwards they'll come in and say, okay, well, this needs to be 5 and this needs to be 10, and they'll start going in and defining things afterwards. If that's the way you work, that's great. If not, like in this case, it just needs to know where that exists based off of the origin. So either start it on the origin or maybe even start with like a construction line, set of construction lines, vertical and horizontal, to help get your location figured out. That's what it's going to do. And if you ever wonder why you're not fully defined, take a look and it'll tell you if you're fully defined or not. So again, if I draw that circle off into space, I am now not fully defined because it doesn't know where it's at in relation to the origin. So I hope that's going to help you at Moodberry. I'll tag you in this video so you can see. So yeah, that'll be it for Thicken in our little kind of Q&A session. I was thinking about doing a holiday special, maybe something along the lines of answering questions, getting stuff done. I got a lot of time off here in the next couple weeks. It's Christmas break for us. We're gearing up for this tournament, but also if you guys have any questions and you guys are at home doing some stuff, send me a comment. And I'll try to put a video together of just straight questions that people are asking. We'll kind of take a diversion from where we're at in our 3D shapes, and we'll do kind of a Q&A session. If that's something you guys are interested in, like I said, send me a comment down below. I've been loving all the feedback I've been getting. Hopefully I'm answering the questions and to your liking, but let's keep on doing this and I'll see you guys another time. Take care. Bye.